This is Dakota News Now, your first alert station.
Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Sam Wright.
I'm Andrea Anderson. Conversations are picking back up for rail projects nationwide after Congress allocated $66 billion as part of a 2021 infrastructure law.
Some advocates believe that now might be the best time for passenger rail services to return to South Dakota. And our Cooper Seamer has more in our top story at 6:30. Good evening, Cooper.
Yeah, Andrea and Sam, the push to bring Amtrak to the state has been ongoing since service started in 1971. Today, South Dakota and Wyoming are the only two states that don't have passenger rail service. And with more federal funding on the way for Amtrak, advocates are working to make sure that the region isn't left behind. Today, South Dakota's railroads only serve freight traffic. The last time a passenger train stopped in Sioux Falls was in 1965 and in the state as a whole in 1969. But with the passage of the bipartisan infrastructure law in 2021, funding for passenger rail is taking a more important role. On Monday, President Joe Biden announced more than $16 billion for new funding for rail projects in the Northeast, hinting that more can be done nationwide with allocated funds.
Train stations that haven't seen a major upgrade for generations, tracks in constant need of repair.
That same 2021 legislation also directed the Federal Railroad Administration to conduct a new study on daily long-distance routes in the country that would connect smaller cities and communities with larger hubs in Amtrak's network.
In the longer run, I think communities that have never had service should be looking at what it would take to get service in the future as we strengthen that foundation so that people have more options.
And advocacy groups are pushing to make sure South Dakota is on the short list for any new routes. Dan Bilka is the president of All Aboard Northwest, an organization advocating for passenger rail expansion in the Great Plains. Bilka also serves as a director for the Rail Passengers Association. He says now is the best chance for South Dakota and the Upper Great Plains as a whole to see expanded passenger rail service with the influx of new funding for projects.
There's ample appetite, not only across the greater Northwest region, but all across the nation to actually do something with this study and not just sit on it for a dozen years, but actually see stuff moving ahead sooner rather than later.
By focusing on long-distance routes, what Amtrak defines as 750 miles or longer, that expansion will be paid for directly by federal funds. That too can help spur further growth of services that can be paid for by local or state funds.
Long-distance routes really should be thought of or conceptualized as the backbone of our national passenger rail system, on top of which states and communities can elect to do what's called state-supported routes.
Currently, there are no set-in-stone plans for route restoration or expansion. That will come when the FRA presents their study findings to Congress next spring. But Bilka says by laying the foundation for support, the dream of rail services in South Dakota could become a reality.
First things first, we need to get the backbone down to simply be on the map and showcase to people, many of which maybe are not familiar with what is modern-day intercity passenger rail services and what can it actually mean for the people that it serves.
Now again, that study from the Federal Railroad Administration is due to Congress in spring. From there, it will be up to Congress on which projects to pursue in restoring or introducing new long-distance routes for Amtrak.